Hi, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Feels Like Home Remodeling, where you're going to learn some tips on how you can improve your lifestyle and comfort with remodeling ideas you can live with your fabulous and ever popular host, Brian Powers of Powers Family Construction. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael.
Everybody's glad to see you. You can hear they're excited.
This crowd is amazing.
I'm going to wave my hand and watch. They just stop like that.
That's amazing.
It's power and control. Guys, one more time. And off.
Hey.
We've got these guys trained.
All right.
Not chained, trained. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right to the lips.
Yeah.
Got stuck there. So, Brian, what is today's topic? Are we going to do like part 2 of what we did last time, or what?
That's exactly right. So, planning your project, part 2, how to hire your contractor. Last week we talked about, do I do it myself? Do I hire a handyman, or do I need a contractor? So this week we're going to move forward into how do I hire a contractor? What's important to know?
Let's do it. Tell me what's important to know.
Well, the first thing is, right, you got to make sure that they're properly qualified for doing the type of work that they're doing. So that they're licensed and that they have a license in the category of the type of work that you're interested in doing. So CSLB, Contractor State License Board, will give you that data with the person's name, the company name. You should be able to find out more about their company and what they're licensed for.
CSLB.com?
Yes, CSLB.com. Thank you, Michael.
That was good. Okay, cool. So what else do I need to do? Where else do I need to go?
Well, once you've secured a contractor that you can contact, one that'll actually call you back. That's another, unfortunate thing about our industry is that there's a lot of guys out there that don't.
Do they all, like, maybe formerly used to work for the DMV or something like that, and they're trained not to call people back?
I'll tell you what, it really has to do with the kind of people that generally get into the industry. And you'll find that the type of people that in general, okay, this is just general stereotyping of, everybody appreciates.
Is that what they're called, general contractors?
Yeah, exactly. No, but in general, you're going to find more of the persons who are less conformity. They don't like the sit down job. They don't like to, have a desk job. They don't like to conform to particular hours and ways of doing business. They do independent contracting to be independent. And so some are extremely independent. So the norms are that you'd expect that your contractor would call you back. That's kind of a first step to make sure that you've got good, clear communication with the person. And just getting them out to your home and returning a phone call would be Step 1?
Step 1, yes.
Step 1.
Please return my phone call.
Yeah, I know it's funny that you have to talk about it, but it's really true. And a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that.
What's step 2?
Step 2 would be something like, looking to find out if the contractor has the proper qualifications, for what it is that you want to do. And that is going to be like, do they have the licensing that is required, and do they have the experience that is required? And that's going to find out from their references. It's going to find out, learning more about them. What's the type of company that they are? Are they a landscape company? Are they a remodeling company? Are they a framing company? There's a lot of different types of contractors out there. So just honing in on, do they do the type of work that you want? Obviously, asking them is the first step, but then also looking into what it is that you want, because you might need somebody that has more experience or multiple trades, but not necessarily a general contractor, but someone who could do both. And obviously, if we got 3 or more trades interacting together, it's always good to have the opinion of a general contractor that does landscape construction for the outside, and or a general remodeling contractor, construction contractor for the inside or for the structure. So
does that mean that they can oversee more than one particular task, like plumbing, electrical, carpentry, that kind of stuff? Is that what that means?
Yeah. So that's basically when you're a general contractor, general B contractor, that's a remodeling contractor, generally doing residential up to 3 stories. And those contractors, which is how we're licensed, they generally have the ability to manage a project with multiple different contractors as well as different needs as far as the type of work that needs to get done. So that's pretty much a priority. But some jobs don't require that. It's a job that is a landscaping job that just has a little bit of electrical in it. So in that case, a landscaping contractor, could legally acquire a subcontractor who had the proper licensing in electrical to do the electrical portion of that work, as long as it was a smaller portion of the work, it's not the major portion of the work.
Cool. What else do I need to know?
Well, I mean, basically, as a contractor, someone that you feel comfortable with. I mean, the idea is, will he call you back? That's step one, right? We already talked about that. But step two is, if you have hired him, you've checked the qualifications out, you find that he's licensed with the state. We didn't really talk about insurance and liability at this point, but we'll talk about that in maybe just a bit. But really, is this person someone that you can work with? Meaning, how are they on the phone? How are they in person? Do you get a good feeling with them? And their references, some of the questions that you might ask the references is, did anything go wrong? Did anything, was there any conflict that went on, and how did they handle it? What was that like? What was the experience like, when something didn't go right? Did they fix it right away? Did they immediately try to, skirt it? Or did they hit it right on and handle the problem? And how do they make them feel at the end? Because a lot of times people won't say things because they don't know. They think something might be wrong, but they're intimidated. They don't want to say, oh, is that right? And then, of course, later down the project, they didn't say anything. And then the thing becomes the thing they saw or they thought of, they didn't ask the question on, maybe becomes a trouble source. And it's not corrected, it's not fixed, and it's not right, and they still feel bad about it. And then it becomes now a big problem. So it's always important to be able to feel comfortable talking to your contractor. Can you bring up the small stuff? How are they going to field your questions and concerns? And as long as your contractor is real open to receiving that kind of feedback, I think that's a good number 2 step, is that you're comfortable with your contractor.
So should I interview more than one contractor and ask those questions and then kind of gauge my feeling from each one?
I would, because you have something to compare to. Because the first contractor you might talk to, oh, everything's great, found the right one. And that can happen. But it's always good to have a second, a third. Once you get past 3, as long as they're equally qualified, as far as their licensing and insurance and such like that, then usually out of the 3, you're going to be able to find somebody that should be a suitable fit. I know some people that have done 5 and 10, but there's so much time that goes into that, that it's really 3 is usually an appropriate number to plan.
3 seems good. So it's kind of like finding a doctor. You're going to want more than one opinion.
Well, definitely, because there's going to be opinions about the way that they're going to do it, everything to the costs, maybe the type of materials that might be suggested to be used. So, that initial research we talked about in the previous episode is really important to kind of find out, more about what you want. But the contractor is there to help you figure out what you want. And sometimes a designer is appropriate, depending on how extensive the project is and how many questions are going to be and how many choices are going to be. Having a designer is quite a benefit. It does increase the cost, but it also increases the quality level immensely in a lot of cases. For us, luckily, we have in-house design and opportunities and things like that, so we don't have to reach too far. But we do have those that we can reach out to when they're getting a little bit larger projects, and there's going to be a lot of those types of decisions. For the contractor, average contractor, they don't want to get involved too deeply in those decisions because that's where a lot of randomness comes in. And it can really stall a project or frustrate a contractor when the customer can't make a decision and they need the decision in order to move forward. And it's notable that, why wouldn't the customer have questions or not know something? So having the right team in place is really going to be about, having a well thought out project plan. And that's also, if the plan's big enough, then drawings and architectural renderings and design work would definitely be something to consider.
So I have a question about cost.
Yeah.
So let's say that I call a contractor and we have everything laid out, and this is the job, this is the scope of the project. We're going to do all these things, and this is the cost. So is that, once you give a quote, are you committed to that bottom line quote? And what happens if there's overages? Now, I would understand that if the client goes, well, now I want you to do this instead of that, which is going to incur more cost. But let's say that none of that transpires. And it comes to the end of where you're getting close to the project and you discover, oh my gosh, I'm like $1,000 short. As a customer, would it behoove me to ask you that question? What happens if you come in a little light on this? Who picks up that extra cost? Am I on the hook for that, or are you going to tack another $1,000 on there? And how do I know that you're treating me fairly and not just trying to make an extra $1,000 because you got to make a car payment?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I mean, typically speaking, when you're doing your planning, that's where a lot of this comes into play. If a contractor is sharp, he will help you along the way to note where the discrepancies are or where the unknown costs might be. For instance, for me, there's a caveat within any contract that says if there's something that's unforeseen or that's not knowable. For instance, like typically in remodeling, right? We do some remodeling work. We find that there's dry rot. Or there's some kind of pest damage, or there's something that's going on that you couldn't see until you opened it up. Who handles that? Well, the contractor is going to have to get it handled in order to finish the job, but where does the cost come from? And so typically speaking, most contracts, for a contractor, they would have a stipulation in there. If there's something that's unforeseen, which I would say is appropriate, then that has to be negotiated at that time. That you're looking at it, okay, well, nobody could see it, so here's what it's going to be to fix that, and that'll be a separate and above and beyond cost. So typically when I'm planning with a client, I'm already having them prepared to have a budget in mind that could allow them to flex a little bit with their budget for these unforeseen things. And one of the things that's unforeseen is a person changing their mind. A lot of times you get in and you start a project and the client will look at it or see it or get a notion of it or see something that they hadn't seen before and say, I'd really like to do this. Of course, that would be a change order. But those are the typical things that you would find. But if I just, square for square and dollar for dollar, just underestimated something, we would complete the job.
Okay. And
we would just be thankful, for the project. And that has happened in the past, and I have done that and been okay with that to the degree that what did I do wrong? And that's where really having a good contractor and someone who's conscientious is going to figure out what they did or didn't do properly. That's going to give them those cost overruns or things they didn't see. In our company, I've been doing this since 1987, done most projects multiple times, and have had those mistakes where you run short or something like that. And the bottom line is that you've got to have a good understanding of where your costs are at. And today, one of the biggest caveats is that our estimates now are only good for 30 days. So, and even at that, there's going to be some caveats because the industry right now is going through something that's kind of crazy, and that is inflation. I think people have maybe started to feel that, and no matter where they are. Inflationary.
I've heard of that.
Yes. And so things like building products, availability, building products costs, and literally the cost of just doing business in general, where something might have cost $1,000, 6 months ago, might have a totally different price today. So it's really important to really understand.
So when does that 30-day start? Does it start from the time that they sign the contract? Does it start from the time that you start the work? So let's say that you quote the job, they sign the contract, they give you a deposit, and you're going along, and in 33 days, the stuff that you thought was going to be $5 a foot is now $8 a foot, but you've already started the job. Does that 30 days come into play, or it's like, well, we're kind of stuck with it? How does that work? Who's on the hook for that extra cost?
Ultimately, it's going to be a process of trusting your contractor and making sure that the proper due diligence has been done. The answer to the question that you gave, which was 30 days, the estimate. So if like, let's say you did a proposal, typically that estimate, and it may be a shorter time depending on the estimate time cycle between the time you wrote the estimate and the time they sign the contract. That 30 days is usually where that estimate time comes in.
All right.
However, once this contract is signed, in any contract that we provide, there's always the act of God or something outside of our control that we would have to then negotiate. Because what you wouldn't want to do is put someone in a position, like let's say I hired somebody, and they say, oh, you told me it's going to be $1,000, and now you told me it's going to be $1,200. Well, you can't get the parts for that anymore, and it's going to cost more. Well, you should have added more in there. That's fair. But is that the kind of business that we want to do with people? Is that, that's fine. If that's a business deal, it's a business deal, and we'll know. But usually with your contractor, you're going to want to have a relationship, and you're going to want to have an understanding. So that way, when something does come up like that, maybe meet them in the middle. Maybe have an understanding of, hey, like, I'm not paying any extra costs, but if I want to change something or if I've done something, that's caused an extra cost, then let's take a look at those individual, on a case-by-case basis.
Well, that seems reasonable. I think the key is to hire a contractor that you trust and have some faith is going to treat you right and not going to overcharge you and just they're going to work in your best interest. In my mind as a business owner, I try to work with the long term in mind because I don't want one job. I want the customer for life, because I'm sure you've had the experience where maybe you're doing a remodeling job and 2-3 years later they call you back and go, oh, now I need to add a spare bedroom, or can you help me do this? So I think that probably comes into play a lot.
Well, definitely in the decision-making process for us, as our company, we're always looking to make sure that we're giving the best value and then giving our best quality service to our customers. Because they're the ones who will refer us, they're the ones who will call us back. And even just as recently, it's just ironic. Just the other day, we had a client call us back from a job that we had originally done 31 years ago. And we actually came back on to do another estimate for another project after 31 years. They were able to find and locate us after all that time. Just
goes to show you the power of just doing a good job the first time. It's amazing.
It seems simple, but it is something that a lot of in the industry struggle with. Doing a good job, or being honest, or being on time, or doing it ethical, just being ethical in general. But I think that's kind of today's society. You're going to find unfortunately, a lot of that out there, and people not looking out for people. But that's what we want to do: take care of our customers.
Cool. So, is there anything else I need to do to plan my project?
Well, we're going to talk about the details on some of the things you want to make sure that we talk to about your. When you get down to finally choosing your contractor, some of the things that you're going to want to look out for, as well as making sure that you're protecting yourself, and how to take a look at that contract.
Sounds good. Any other final words of wisdom before we bid farewell and adieu?
No, just get out there and think of new projects all the time. And, when you need some help, make sure you get the proper help out there. Otherwise, you get a crazy project.
Sounds good. We want to give a big rousing round of applause to our friend Brian Powers, who's the owner of Powers Family Construction. Oh, by the way, where are you located?
We're located in Southern California, serving Orange County and South Long Beach.
You got a phone number that somebody can call you if they need you?
Yes, it's 949-488-3207.
Do that one more time. You've got those dulcet tones going on.
Okay, 949-488-3207. You can find us, online as well.
Cool. Brian, thank you very much. Shall we have the crowd show their appreciation?
Appreciation is always wonderful.
Fabulous. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Feels Like Home Remodeling with your host, your friend of mine, Mr. Brian Powers.